Well, Hugh Padgham did this, and I've been working with Hugh with Phil Collins. And certainly in the 80s, he was like the greatest engineer. You know, he and Bob Clearmountain, he had that amazing Phil Collins drum sound, and Hugh came up with the particular compressors and equalizers to use to make Phil Collins' voice sound like Phil Collins.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he was a great engineer, and I remember when I first heard he sent me a quarter-inch tape copy of both Synchronicity 1 and 2, which were labeled the opposite back then, and then Every Breath You Take, just to evaluate the mix and, you know, hear what I thought of it, and I thought the mixes sounded amazing, like they still do, and he was, you know, he got confirmation that I thought it was good too, so that was great. And then when he came to Masterdisc to do it, it was in the digital, it was on a JVC digital machine. When we were mastering it, I had to do a single of Every Breath You Take before the album. I remember that now. And very uniquely, this has never happened before, I had a temperature of like 102 or 103 degrees, and the thing had to go out that day, and it was a matter of coming in really sick and doing it, or making somebody unhappy, or somebody else, they would have made somebody else do it. So,
Yeah.
So I remember mastering Every Breath You Take, which ended up being the single of the year on the album of the year, with a very high temperature and fever. So
Had a little magic to it.
So, and I remember I couldn't hear that well, but thank God Hugh's mixes were great, and I guess what I did do was okay. But when we finally did the actual album, and Hugh was there, and you know, I remember it didn't need a heck of a lot of work because it sounded really good to begin with, and you know, it was, you know, hearing that music for the first time, you can never dial back to like exactly when, like, imagine hearing a Beatles song for the very, very first time. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, it was the same thing. I mean, I remember that album was, you could tell immediately it was a very, very special album. Like, there was nothing really like it before, and there's been very little like it since. I mean, somehow all that material is very glued together somehow, and also within each song, it's got its own little drama and theater, and it's, you know, it was rated, I think it was called the best album of, what was it, 83 it came
83.
out? Yeah. And I think it's also on Rolling Stone's list of all-time best albums ever, and, you know, it certainly is. And I remember when I saw the cover and found out that there was, like, I don't know how many different covers, there were like 30-something different combinations of colors that they did, and it was pretty neat that they were really putting so much energy behind it, you know.
And the final record, too, for them.
Yeah. Well, you know, I heard Hugh talk about when they're doing overdubs or playing they didn't play in the same room together, you know.
Times were bad then.
Yeah.
It was the marriage was starting to come apart. I wonder, years down the line, after you work on legendary records like Synchronicity, and maybe if you're in the car or you're somewhere and you hear songs, do you listen a little bit closely? Do you listen to it with kind of a little bit of a careful ear, kind of breaking down the song and trying to remember?
You know, I can be in a restaurant and sometimes hear 4 or 5 songs in a row that I've done. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, sure.
And, you know, each one of them usually brings back some image. So it's always cool to hear something you've done on the radio. I remember the first thing I ever did that I heard that was on the radio was either Kentucky Woman by Neil Diamond or Journey to the Center of Your Mind by the Amboy Dukes.
Wow.
With Ted Nugent.
Sure. Some great stuff.
Yeah.
Wow. The catalog, the history for you, unreal. One more thing real quick. The remasters, the reissues about 13 or so years ago. Can you explain a little bit about the fun working with those records, the catalog?
Yeah. Well, it was great to visit the entire catalog, and there's I should pull out the notes, but there was a lot of things that needed fixing here or there, and I remember there were a couple of speed issues. I remember we had to do a greatest hits package, and then A&M decided that they wanted all the remastered sound to be put onto the greatest hits video. Mm-hmm. And it turned out that the speed of the masters that were locked to the picture had very little to do with the actual masters. And I remember myself and Adam, who was working with, and who works with me. Adam, I think in particular, spent a lot of time on the computer trying to make my greatest hits package sync to the video on that project. It was really quite something.